What is the saddest video game you have played and why? The Beginner's Guide. It's not a traditional game per se. It's more a story of an indie game developer sinking into depression as narrated by his friend. You play the games and levels that he made before he stopped making games. There was a flash game called Cold Case. You are a ghost trying to solve your and other nearby ghosts' murders. In the end you help your grieving girlfriend find her next relationship. It got me to thinking about much it must suck to be a ghost and be forced to watch your loved ones move on without you. Presentable Liberty. If you play it, I warned you. The game is about being a prisoner during an unknown catastrophe. I won't spoil it. Edit, here is a link to the game. Among the sleep you're a toddler trying to survive all these scary scenarios. Spoiler alert, at the end you realize the whole game was about you as a child trying to escape trauma and then finding out your mother in the game was an abusive alcoholic and that's who you were running from the whole time, and at the end you're getting taken away on your birthday. That game messed me up for a minute. Probably Soma, the ending hit me hard and I proceeded to have an existential crisis for the next week. Valiant Hearts. The only piece of entertainment I have cried at that I can recall recently. I even knew the ending and it still got me. Rhyme. It is a game on loss, depression, recovery, and understanding what happened. And I started playing it not too long after losing a good friend a couple years ago. This war of mine, that's how it is and was for most of the people that lived through it, and some still do unfortunately. At the end of the first Walking Dead game. Wouldn't say it was massively sad, just only thing I can think of at almost 2:30 AM. To the Moon, 4 hours indie game about an old man on his deathbed trying to fulfill a childhood promise. It's a story about trauma and love and memories, and it uses the video game medium so well to tell it. With just the occasional joke to keep you from immediately killing yourself. Part of its power probably comes from the music, some really heart-wrenching piano songs in there. Just came out on Switch or Steam. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons really got to me. Ori and the Will of the Wisps had a really sad story. What Remains of Edith Finch is pretty sad. It's about a cursed family. Mother 3, not gonna tell you why, play it. Wept like a baby onto the moon. Firewatch. That beginning, up-level feels. Not the whole game, but a side quest in The Witcher 3 got me to cry for the first, and only time so far, to a game. In the quest Black Pearl, you find a black pearl for this guy's wife. You ask him if she liked it, and he says he isn't sure. You press him, and it turns out his wife has some sort of Alzheimer's/dementia and doesn't act the same or remember things. The black pearl was something they always joked about, and he hoped giving her one would sort of bring her back. It doesn't, and I've had family members succumb to the same type of afflictions, and it's heart-wrenching to see. FF10 from Zanarkand to the end. Knew what was coming but still hit deep. Spec Ops: The Line, the choices you had to make in that game were truly saddening. Last of Us, the story just sticks, the characters are so fun and interesting, or badass, or ruthless and you wanna murder them. It's a video game filled with emotional thrills and deep pauses where the music really shines. God, the music. This War of Mine, such a different game, so hard to describe what it means to become those everyday people stuck in the middle of a war zone. What your decisions mean and how hard it is to remain human when so much inhumanity surrounds you. Deep game filled with morality and sadness. RDR2, the ending and the fate of Arthur, the way the game's story sorta gets you there. All of it is heartbreaking, and with the game so rich with detail and hours upon hours of gameplay, it's hard not to grow close to the characters and not to feel a part of the gang once it all goes to shit. Madden 20, every time I play it I just cry because it's such a bad game. MGS3, one of the best prequels ever conceived by man. Titanfall 2. Damn that Protocol 3, protect the pilot. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Time, Darkness, Sky. The scenes near the climax of the game are done very well with music that tugs on your heartstrings. Lol, kinda surprised that I haven't seen this one yet. I know this doesn't compare to many new games, but Super Paper Mario was a trip. You'd never expect a Mario game to have that kinda depressing lore. Shadow of the Colossus because reasons. And the God of War series, because behind all the rage and gore, Kratos actually has a very sad story. Nier Automata, probably. So many side quests with depressing endings. Lisa, the Painful. I didn't play it but watched my now husband play it like 4 years ago. The game is about a broken man in search of his adopted daughter through a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Drugs, sacrifice, losing limbs, and seemingly pointless but very much intended quests. The whole thing is dark but with a few chuckles. Gears of War 3, the mission where Dom dies always gets to me. He gets eaten up by his wife's death and sacrifices himself to save his team. He was always the player 2 in the year's games, so it was really heartbreaking if you played on split screen like I did. Majora's Mask. Something about that game is just very unsettling and yet melancholy at the same time. From sitting in a bar with some people you looked up to at the last few minutes before the world ends to Link's pain of being alone. Just listening to the music gives those vibes, as well as just most of the story and atmosphere, and if you go into the 5 stages of grief theory it becomes even more so. It's a beautiful game. It's beautifully hopeless and heart-crushing, not in the way a good story that makes people die can, but in just a beautiful eerie way. You are the hero, but there will always be people beyond saving, including yourself. Army of Two. There are few different endings depending on how you finish the game. However, there is one in particular that stayed with me. I was young at that time, so it hit even deeper. Great game. Heavy Rain has a really sad plotline of loss and a father's love. The antagonist in the story is going around kidnapping children to torture the fathers, believing that men should be tested to be worthy of being called a father. This was due to an incident that had occurred in the antagonist's childhood where his brother had fallen through a hole in a storm drain at a construction site. The antagonist tries to get help, but his drunk father dismisses it and beats the antagonist for disrupting him, resulting in the death of the antagonist's brother. First part of The Last of Us was pretty brutal. Soma. It got thrown under the bus because it was made by the guys who made Amnesia, and it mostly gets interesting by mid-game. Everyone expected a scary game, and the scary parts are not scary at all, especially in the beginning. But holy fucking Christ, does that game leave you with your jaw dropped and an existential crisis to haunt you for life. I've never watched the ending credits and think about my existence while listening to a sad piano song ever before. I highly recommend everyone to play it. I finished it in 10 hours on a slow playthrough, so it's not that long. I'm serious, it's so underrated because people expected scary Amnesia 2.0, it's insane. Firewatch. Spider-Man on PS4. You saw what happened with Doc Ock coming, but man, you got so attached to him that it was still heartbreaking. You were everything I wanted to be. Line killed me. Also, Aunt May sacrificing her own life for the greater good and Peter having to willingly let her die fucking also killed me. Also, take off your mask, I wanna see my nephew. Fuck.